rocket makers. So one of the problems I'm facing this summer is that I don't have access to a flying field. Now that is obviously not the ideal situation, but I'm trying to make the best of it by doing some projects that are perhaps a little more longer term, or certainly will facilitate my builds as I go, and with that the making of videos. So one of the projects that you may have noticed is this beast, and you've heard me complain about my 3D printer for a long time, so I'm building a hypercube. This is the hypercube evolution design. So this should be ongoing for the next month or so. I'm not going to go into the details of this build because there are enough build videos out there. I'll certainly show it to you when it's done and up and running, and hopefully I'll be able to show you some better results than what I've seen so far. But the purpose of this video is the addition of another tool. So I've added 2 new overhead cameras to some of my workspaces that should help with the creation of these videos. They're not perfect. I'd like them to be a little wider angle, for example, but it's a good start, and I'll start experimenting with some of the newer Raspberry Pi lenses coming up and the new camera module that goes with it. But these are 2 Raspberry Pi camera-based projects. They use a Raspberry Pi with power over Ethernet, so I have a special Ethernet hub that supplies the power. So it's on when it's plugged in. I can control it remotely with some very simple software I have on board the Raspberry Pis. It uploads the videos to my servers. So I'll show you how I have them set up here today. I started working on a 3D scanner using Raspberry Pi cameras quite a while ago, and I designed a special purpose case for them. And that case allowed me to use power over Ethernet and mount the camera all in a single design. The camera itself allows me to attach it to a PVC frame and rotate it as required depending on where it is in the scanner. I designed the camera with interchangeable bases in mind, and here you can see one mounted on a tripod that I'm currently using as an Octopi server. To mount this to my workbench, I'd previously intended to use a PVC pipe attached to the desk and use that as the basis for an overhead mount, but that proved to be quite unsteady. Since then, I've installed these shelves next to the work table, and I created some 3D printed plastic brackets that will allow me to attach a 2020 rail. That 2020 rail then has a custom bracket that attaches to the rail, and again, in the interest of interchangeability, I can have a couple of different types of interchangeable camera mounts. The one shown here allows me to mount the camera in portrait mode. If I want to mount it in landscape mode, I have a different adapter that I use, and this is the one that I use over the electronics workbench. This is the second location for the overhead camera. So this is a secondhand desk I acquired that I'm using as a soldering workstation, and there are times when perhaps you'd like to see from the top of what I'm doing. So there are 2 issues I'm going to solve here today, one of which is creating a mount for an overhead cam, and I'm going to do that with some 2020 rails. I'm going to basically create a rectangle over the top of the desk. The next problem I need to solve is I have a lamp. Now that lamp is required for here. There isn't a lot of light, especially as it gets darker. The room doesn't light the workspace sufficiently. But this requires a clamp. And I have no point on this desk to clamp it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an old unused NEMA 17 motor mount that I'm going to attach to the side of the desk, and that'll give me a place to clamp onto my lamp. The third one, which I'm not going to solve today, this anti-static mat goes in behind the desk. It extends beyond the edge, and knowing me, I'm going to place something that's going to fall off the back. So I would like to extend the surface of the desk to the back a little, as well as create a little shelf that will allow me to place my my Weller soldering iron on there. Right now I only have the hot air gun, but I'd like to have this a more complete workstation. So I will add that at some later date, but we're not going to be doing that today. So let's get started. So it may take some adjustment to get it exactly where I want it. And while I've addressed the lighting for my work, that doesn't necessarily address the lighting for the camera. So I'm going to have to experiment a bit with that and see if I need an additional overhead light here. But we have the framework to do that. So this is a much improved situation to what I had before, and hopefully this will definitely improve the quality of the videos coming up. So I'm excited for the future. If you like this video, would like to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe, tell your friends, and have fun making whatever it is you make.